It's a great pleasure to welcome you again to Somaliweek Festival. And this evening, we're incredibly glad also to be collaborating with a number of institutions. In the next session, we will be we'll be collaborating. We've collaborated on the next session with Poetry Translation Center, and it's a great honor that for this evening as well, we are in partnership conducting the event with Africa Rights, the Royal African Society. That leaves me to conclude the housekeeping and to introduce this wonderful panel that I had the honor of chairing. No introductions actually needed, so I'm going to keep it very, very brief. It's a great honor for all of us, especially here at Somaliweek Festival, to welcome Nuradin Farah to the 10th anniversary of Somaliweek Festival. Critically acclaimed author, prolific writer, commentator, thinker, Nuradin Farah has been a vocal voice and thinker on Somali issues, and his work I really cannot sum up here. I tried, Nuradin, to get accurate numbers of exactly the number of books that you've published, because there are so many, and I think almost every other couple of years your corpus seems to be growing. But this evening we are here to celebrate his, if I may say so, one of his seminal works, From a Crooked Rib. And it is the first book, I don't know if you would agree with me, but it is the first book, at least for me, that I was able to... Waan u soo socdaa adigoo raali ah waan u soo socdaa af Soomaaliga, marka haddaad in yar aad u yar dul qaadan karaysid waad mahadsan tahay. Waxaan hadduu alla yidhaahdo qaybtani af Soomaaliya af Ingiriisigu wuu ku baxayaa, marka haddaad raali naga ahaan karaysid ina yar sug dulqaad baan kaa dalbanaynaa. Markaas, as I was saying, From a Crooked Rib is it is the only book that I picked up in a bookstore written by a Somali author, and it gave me the insight into an incredibly complicated story. And we are here to celebrate this seminal work, and it is now made available in Somali. We're here also to celebrate the translation of A Crooked Rib for the first time since its first publication in 1970. The book is now available in Somali. So please give a very warm round of applause to begin with to the author who made all of this possible, the reason why we are here, our highly anticipated visit from Nuradin Farah. Welcome, Nuradin. Sitting also with me on this panel is Jama from Red Sea Cultural Foundation, who, together with Abdisalam Hereri, well known, of course, Abdisalam Hereri as a producer, as a journalist, as a commentator, but now also the translator of A Crooked Rib. And I would like to maybe start this session first to ask Jama, if I may, what motivated you to publish and to facilitate the translation of this book in partnership with Abdisalam?
Bismillah. The work has been done by Abdisalam, so the translation is exclusively with Abdisalam Hereri. As he will tell us, this is not the first work that he has done in terms of translation, but it will be the first published. So I'm glad that Red Sea Cultural Foundation joined the production of this work. But I wanted to say one word why Red Sea Cultural Foundation and KD Somali Arts and Culture in entire project is the Somaliweek Festival and Hargeisa International Book Fair, focused on translation. That is sort of the production of this work. Both these projects that I have mentioned are platform for exchange of different ideas, where different cultures and different ideas and different thoughts meet. So the translation becomes, and it was always a crucial, if you want, bridge that connects these different cultures. So the translation was important since the beginning of our work. And for that reason, a few years back, we started what we call it a collection of books called Isweydaarsi. There's a column of books. We translated, Isweydaarsi is a Somali word meaning exchange. And the reason was the idea that Somali people with their literature, with their rich literature, can give something to the world. So we translated Hadrawi, Garriye, Muse, Galal, and so many. And every year, as we will see tonight, with in collaboration with the Poetry Translation Center, all our guests of Somaliweek Festival, we translated from Somali to English. At the same time, we translated we published Animal Farm of George Orwell. We published Anton Chekhov, a selection of short stories by Anton Chekhov. We published a few years back Happy Prince of Oscar Wilde, Charles Dickens. I mean, we started translated to classics, if you want, written in English language into Somali. So the idea of the translation was this sort of, if you want to break the barriers, or if you want to connect as a bridge in two different cultures. Choose what you want in the two ways of saying, but just to facilitate the connection and the collaboration of these two cultures. To come to that, I don't know what to say if this work will be part of the Isweydaarsi, what I mean, if translating Nuradin Farah from English to Somali will be, in which part we have to put. But I'm really grateful to Nuradin Farah. I'm really grateful to Abdisalam Hereri for doing this wonderful job, a wonderful work for the Somali young people who will be able to read one of the books that I loved when I was young, of course, first time I started to read. So it is really great pleasure and honor to have published the first book of Nuradin Farah and the first work published and translated into Somali. So that was the reason I published.
Thank you very much, Jama. It's quite remarkable that From a Crooked Rib has been translated into many languages. And today it's a massive celebration for all of us that it's also available in Somali. We are, of course, incredibly honored to have the author with us here today. Nuradin, if I may start off with maybe asking you to think back to your 20-year-old self as you were embarking upon this story. What is it that motivated you to write From a Crooked Rib? How did the story come about?
Well, let me first of all say it's a great pleasure for me to be with you this evening to celebrate the publication in Somali of From a Crooked Rib. I would say that each one of the books that I have published has a story that's attached to it. But above all, From a Crooked Rib has a unique story in that before attempting to write From a Crooked Rib, I had written 2 novels before From a Crooked Rib, which never saw the light of day. And recently, somebody found my second book, in the bottom drawers of a publisher. It's not good enough for me even to clean it up and have it published. At that time, I wrote my first book at the age of 20, my second at the age of 21, and my third book, which is From a Crooked Rib, as a 22-year-old student. I was in India studying Indian philosophy and English literature. I was restless. I was quite unhappy with most of the books that I read and that were meant for other people. And the one thing that also was there for me to contend, to struggle with, was that English was my fourth language, which meant that I had 3 languages, that I learned 3 languages before English. Somali being the first, second being Amharic, which is the language spoken in Ethiopia, and then Arabic. And later I learned Italian. Now, I thought, when I was a lot younger, that I would actually I would write in all these languages, but I would have preferred if I had written the first book in Somali. The problem was, Somali had no orthography at the time. There was no standardized form of Somali that one could write in. And I pushed that one aside, thinking to myself, well, at least put something down, write it down. Maybe eventually, if it's worth anything, somebody will find it, publish it, and translate it. And that was how I began writing the novel. Now, novel writing is comparable to marathon running. You don't run a marathon the first time you want to run. What you do first is you make short sprints and continuously practice doing these short sprints until you accumulate enough experience for you to be able to run. For that reason, I had written and published short stories in Somalia at the age of 16, 17, and 18. And the idea was almost always like someone preparing for running a marathon, to prepare myself until I was able to do it. What motivated you to write the book is a very difficult question, but I will take it in a very easy way. I'll give myself the easy job of simply saying that, as I said to you, I had 3-4 languages already. And I recall reading in Arabic, I read Al-Jarima wal-Iqab, which is Crime and Punishment, a novel, Dostoevsky's novel. And I read Les Miserables, also in Arabic. And when I read these books, I could not find a name with which I was familiar. These were alien names that did not speak to me directly. And I remember saying at the age of about 17, long before I even wrote a novel, that what I was going to do was to write books in which the Somali child will find himself or herself. So that was one of the reasons, despite the fact, and this is very important, despite the fact that I wrote it in English. Now we, in Somali, we have a proverb, which is a proverb I quite often repeat, and that is, even a hunchback learns to live with his discomforts. And for that reason, I took the non-existence, the inexistence of Somali orthography as the discomfort with which I had to struggle and which I had somehow to overcome. I hope I've answered half of the question.
Fantastic. If I may briefly follow up on that, you mentioned that if we take the analogy of writing as a marathon, and from a crooked rib being at the very start of your race or your journey, and now that you are, if I may say so, a seasoned marathon runner, how do you look back on it? And in particular also, how do you relate the story, the characters, the protagonist from a crooked rib, with the chord that it strikes with readers? There's something special about your first novel being so speaking so widely, both to Somali audiences and to international audiences.
Well, as I said to you, I was a second-year student at the university. And the downside of it was that I failed in that year, because in India you took year by year. And in fact, I had to repeat most of the exams. I wrote the novel in a feverish state. In fact, the actual writing of the novel took under 2 months to write. I shut myself away, did not go to university, did not open another book. I wrote every day, and because I was sharing a house with a few other Indian and Malaysian students, they were the ones who were responsible for feeding me. They were the ones who were responsible they would take turns to look after me. And as it happens, in parentheses, I met one of those people recently, and I'm going back to India for the first time in many, many years. And the reason is because he was instrumental in helping me write the book. Now, what happened after I have written the book? What did I do? I had no idea, because no Somali had ever written or published anything outside the country. I had no idea what to do with the book. And I, by chance, met several English women who were equivalent to the Peace Corps in those days. They were used to be called VSO. And one of them said, if you have finished a novel, what we're going to do is there is a publishing house called African Writers Series, Hanneman African Writers Series. What we can do is we can find the address and you can send it. The book, I did not put it in the post. One of these young women brought it to London, gave it to the editor. The editor and his wife quarreled over who was going to read first. And then finally, when he read finished and liked the book, he wrote a letter to me. Dear Mr., Mrs., or Ms. Farah, will you please send us a photograph to determine your gender? And of course I refused. And then they would not publish it until I sent a photograph. Now, I think that I could say that having written the book in a feverish state of being, I may not even be able to claim that I was the one who wrote the book. And the reason is because I was out of it for much of the time. Now, the responses that I have received, the book has been translated into a number of languages. It's now in Penguin Classics in England. To date, I received letters addressed to Mrs. Farah. When I was married, it was a lot easier because I used to give it to my former wife. Now that I'm not married, I don't know what to do with them. Somehow it spoke to people in a way I did not expect. And I don't think I should be the one claiming the credit for it, because if the fever has inspired me, we have to locate that fever and put a question to the fever.
Would you say that any of your other books subsequently, or your writing subsequently, have you experienced this feverish state ever again in the same state, in the same intensity?
Well, what happens quite often is every time I finish a book and I'm starting a new one, it strikes me as if I actually do not know how to write. It's as if I'm a beginning, a writer beginning to write. And somehow, because I like sitting still, staying in the same room, ideally, it doesn't happen all the time, but ideally, for 9 hours a day, writing or doing research for writing. Most of the books have different states of being that has been created through that feverish state. But the one that I remember most is another novel that's become favorite to a number of people, called Maps. I remember it because I was living in the Gambia at the time. I sent it to my literary agent in London. She sold it to a publisher called Picador. We submitted it before my writing the epilogue. The rest of the book was finished except the epilogue. And I asked my editor at the time to give me time so that I could write it. And then while writing the epilogue, the book was 180 pages long. I then decided to reread the book from the beginning. I got into another feverish state. And the book grew from 180 pages in typescript to 450 pages in less than 3 months this time. So I have and in fact, during that period, I was attached to, there was a restaurant not very far from where I lived. They used to deliver my meals, and I would, pay the money. In other words, what I like to do, ideally, is to lock myself away and to work continuously on a book until it's done. It's never possible to have that because, you have dental appointments, you have children who call you daddy, or somebody calling you uncle who needs your help. And, there's so many, and these things that take away, even going to conferences, take one away from, because I was in the middle of a book and now I have to come to London kind of thing. So this is some of the, and if I never got invited, I would be very unhappy. So you have to see the two sides. I am unhappy if I am not invited. I am unhappy if I am invited, but nobody knows what to do with me, because by nature I'm unhappy.
I'd like to bring in Abdisalam at this point. And Abdisalam, waa kan Nuradin wuxuu inooga taabtay markuu qorayay buugga caqabadaha ka hortaagnaa ama caqabadaha ka hortaagnaa inuu af Soomaali buugga ku qoro. Sanado ayaa ka soo wareegtay. Maanta af Soomaaligu heer ku taagan yahay ma taagno, laakiin way ila tahay caqabada aadba maanta inaad kala kulmantay translation ka buugan. Marka waxaad in yar nooga sheegtaa marka ugu horeysa, if I can put it bluntly, maxaa kugu kalifay inaad Nuradin buuggiisa aad ka dhigatid buug aad adu turjuntay? Maaha bay ila tahay shaqo sahlan. Ta labaadna marka aad u soo jeesatay inaad bilowdid translation-ka, caqabadaha aad la kulantay siiba dhinaca af Soomaaliga maxay ahaayeen?
Waad mahadsan tahay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This session will be conducted both in English and Somali. I will say my bit in Somali and Oman will kindly interpret for those of you who don't speak Somali. And Nuradin, waa kan fadhiday horta isaga igu kalifay. Aad iyo aad buu ugu mahadsan yahay inuu igu kalifay. Sharaf weyn waan ugu hayaa. Waxay ahayd haddaan si fiican u xusuusto 12 sannadood ka hor markii Nuradin uu weydiiyay inaan turjumo buug kale oo lahaa oo Yesterday Tomorrow la yiraahdo. Dabadeedna hawl kasta ilaa aad gacanta la gashid culayskeeda iyo dhibta ay leedahay iyo waxaas oo dhan ma qiyaasi karaysid marka hore. dabadeedna si yar oo sahlan baa Nuradin isaga dhaway. Markaan content page meelaha marayo ayaa Nuradin la hadlay oo aan ku yidhi hawshiisaan moodayay maaho hawlahayga kale iskuma gelayaan raalliga haw. Uu isii qaameeyay markaas oo wuxuu yidhi Nuradin aniga hawlo badan baa wuxuu yidhi rahmano dee aan ku tala jiray muddo dheer inaan sameeyo soo saameeyay Nuradin oo walina ii dhamaanin. Marka waxaad yeeshaa inta ay ka go'an tahay buudi inaad samaysid goortay doontaa noqotay intay doontaa kula gaadhay. dabadeedna absidii aan beriga qaaday baan sidii ugu maqnaa. dadna Nuradin baanu mar labaad ku kulannay Hargeysa Book Festival-kii 2014-kii. dabadeedna wuxuu yidhi kii hore hadduu yara adkaaday waxaad samaysaa bal kan ku bedel. markaa wadda kaloo ii furayd ma jirin oo ahayd inaan hawsha u babac dhigo. markaa saasaan ku bilaabay. mar kastana sharaf bay ahayd in hawsha ama buugga dee magacaa leh ee adduunyada Nuradin uu gaadhsiiyey inaan aniguna dadkii Soomaalida ugu soo celiyo isagoo Soomaaliya laakiin hawl sahlan maaha marka laga eego as a broadcaster ama wariye ahaan guidelines-ka lagu shaqeeyay ugu muhiimsan waxa weeye waxa haddaanad adigu fahmin cid kale uma sheegi kartid marka warbixinta aad akhriyayso haddii aad fahmi weydo cid kalena uma gudbin karto uma sheegi kartid taa waxa looga jeedaa inta badan the institutions kan ka shaqeynaya BBC doo kale iyo Voice of America iyo Ingiriisi baa lagu soo qoraa warbixinaha marka haddii aad isla word by word u turjun waxay noqonaysaa de macno ka duwan macnihii warbixintu xabaarsaneed waxa laga yaabaa inaad dadkii mislead garaysaba marka waa inaad horta fahanto dabadeedna aad turjunto anigoo tii ka duulaya ayaan isku dayay Nuradin Farah oo af Ingiriisiga ku wadhay inaan wixii adduunyada dhaqanka Soomaalida ugu sheegay inaan Soomaalidii ku soo celiyo iyadoo Soomaaliyeysan marka may hawl yarayn hawlaada iyo aad u adag bay ahayd luqad kasta sidaan sheegayo marka aad baranaysid tusaale ahaan barigaan wadankan imi baan anigu af Soomaali baan wax ku bilaabay standard 1-kaygii markii af Soomaaligu soo baxay baa la qoray 72-kii marka waxbarashadeedo dhan waxay ahayd Soomaali intii yareeyay secondary-ga lagu qaadan jiro iskooda mid ahayd mooyaan dabadeed halkan markaan imi ayaan ninaanu saaxiib ahayn oo American ahaa ayaan nurse bay ahayn isagii xaaskiisiyo deedna Mareykan buu ku noqdo waraaq buu ii soo qoray marka basketball-kan isku tiim u ciyaaraa ninkayga sidaan u culisay barigaas aan uma cuslaan jirin laakiin marmar waan tuurtaa imikaba ninkii baa waraaq buu ii soo qoray wuxuu yidhi we had a new adoption to our family we had 6 weeks old black Labrador she's very cute playful and also very shy warqadii baan kaliya meel la fadhiistay oo dabadeedna fahmay horta reerkii aan asxaabta ayna wax ku soo kordheen Labrador aniga markaa dee iska daa noocayda kamid ah ayoo dhan baan dee inoogu jirinba oo wadada waata Soomaalidu way ka cararaan dabadeedna Labradorkii baan garan waayo intii ka dambeysay ayaan fahmay she is very cute playful and also very shy wasaas wallahi ninkii inaan baa u dhalatay oo intaan taw idhi baan booskaar soo qaado intii yareedan qaanay baan u qoro congratulations for your new daughter ninkii labadii booskaarkii warqadii jawaabta ahayd wali waan hayaa uu soo jawaabo wuxuu yidhi it was because of your poor English and my bad handwriting blame came wada saarin we had a dog dabadeedna warqadaa dambe maalintii aan helay ayaa anigoo dee isku qoslaya anigu ayay islaan cleaner noo ahayd hostelkan ku jiray soo gashay dabadeedna islaantii baa markaan labadii sheeko uga sheekeeyey ayay tii dee intaynan tunbaad ku yara qaldantaye waxay ahayd kullaba inaad booskaar u dirtid haddii Labrador kale u dhalay saani tanaaba ka sii waaran waxaan jeclahay inta aanan buugga ku soo noqon sheeko yar oo kale inaan idila wadaago taasi dadkaan anu ka mid ahay iyo qof kasta oo luqadda baranaya waxay ku dhici jirtay berigii hore markuu qofku wadankiisa ka tago oo wadan kale uu tago oo dhaqankii iyo luqaddii aanu garanayn waxa maanta ka jirta adduunyadii maadaama ay aad isugu furantay waxaan jeclay inaan idila wadaago sheeko yar oo kale marka luqad lagu wada hadlayo iyo marka laba dhaqan wada hadlayaan way kala duwan tahay Hargeysa kal hore inaanu saaxiib nahay oo baac mushtari weyna oo halkan wax ku bartay iyo Faransiiska iyo Mareykan ayaanu israacnay oo company weyn oo u leeyahay ayuu doonayay inuu soo daawadsiiyo controlka markaanu joogno ayaa nin noo yimi wuxuu yidhi walaal ilaa oo barkhadle isii qaada dabadeedna ninkii kambaniga lahaabaa wuxuu ku yidhi siyaasadda kambanigayga kuma jirto inaanu qaadno dadka aan shaqaalaha iyaga ahayn ee aanaan garanayn ninkan feebarkana weydiisanaya isagu wuxuu yaqaanaa soo fuuliyo waanu buuxnaa iyo halkaa gaari mayno laakiin ninkanna wuxuu akhriyaa bolosigii kambanigiisa oo siyaasadda kambanigayga ninkii baa intuu saa noo eegay ayuu walaal siyaasadda iyo kambanidii maan weydiin ee aw barkhadle isii gaadhsiiyanaya anigu dhexdaa fadhiyaa labadiiba waa fahmayaa moogta labadii nin af Soomaali bay ku wada hadlayaan ninna luqad kale kuma hadlayo laakiin dee laba dhaqan baa wada hadlaya moogta ninkii baa intuu saa noo eegay baa wixiina uu garan waayay markaasuu yidhi war af Soomaaliga miyaa la bedelo suu iska dhaqaaq buugga haddaan usoo noqdo anigu iyadoo qaantaa horena igu maqan tahay maan haysanin sida Nuradin imika uu inoo sheegay annaan ka warhayay inaan isku soo xidho meel 6 bilood shaqadii kale ku dhex waday laakiin waxaan runtii aniga qudhaydu u bogayay translation ka soo kow wadcigii waqtigaa jiray oo iyo waa filim aad daawanayso oo kale waa dhinac waa taariikh dhinac waxa weeye sida dee halabuur kale Nuradin wuxuu qoro dhinac sida aan idiin sheegay marar fara badan dee hadday kaa ribato ood kelmadda soo qaban weydo ama af Soomaali aad ku weydo waxay noqonaysaa ma dhaafi kartid oo ma odhanaysi tan hadhow baan usoo noqonayaa ila sheekadii way isku xidhantay moogta marka waa inaad ilaa inta aad ama miciin helayso ama dictionary kale helayso ama encyclopedia helayso waa inaad halkaa taagnaataa muddo igu qaadatay waxaan aad iyo aad ugu mahadnaqayaa Jama oo qayb laxaad leh isaguna hawsha ka qaatay oo taageero ah sida aad qiyaasi karaysaan Nuradin af Ingiriisiga markuu ku qorayay sidii waqtigii wadcigii waqtigaa jiray oo iyo sidii fikirkii jiray adduunyada ama kii ku jiray Nuradin oo 22 jira ayuu adduunyada u gudbinayay oo laakiin macnaynaysa Soomaalida iyo dhaqankeeda iyo nolosheeda dabadeedna marka ajnabi loo sheegayo in lagu soo celiyo dadkii waxaan lahaayay dhaqankan lahaa iyadoo u taalla si ay fahmi karaan waxyaabo badan baan nad macnayn karaynin ama aad iska dhaafaysaaba oo waxa weeye ama noqonaysaa inaad si kale aad u dhigto oo dee qofkii Soomaaliga ah uu ku fahmi karayo laakiin waxaan u malaynayaa hawsha iga gaadhay Nuradin haddii iyadoo sharafiya uu yidhaa mid kale samee aad baan uga fikri lahaa
Thank you very much, Abdisalam. For those of you who don't speak Somali, you will have noticed that Abdisalam is a beautiful orator and storyteller. So I cannot do justice at all to the wonderful anecdotes and stories that he has shared with us. But to give you a little bit of an overview of his response to the question, which was, as we have heard from Nuradin, at the time of writing From a Crooked Rib, Nuradin had the intention of writing in Somali, but the language didn't permit itself for a work to be published in Somali at that point. Now, the Somali language has both in written form and standardization and linguistically been strengthened over the years. So Abdisalam wouldn't necessarily have faced the same challenges. But indeed, in embarking on the translation of such a important work has its own challenges, which Abdisalam described to us. First question I asked him, which I was curious to know, is of all of the books that you can translate, of all of the stories, of all of the authors that is deserving and worthy of translating, why did you embark on translating From a Crooked Rib as your first piece of translation? And Abdisalam explained to us that he and Nuradin had been in touch some 13 odd years ago about translating another book, another story. And these initial discussions were interrupted, I think, by life. And also by the daunting task of translating such a complicated work. And Abdisalam mentioned that after 50 odd pages, life just took over. And he didn't return to the story and its translation for many years. Now, a fortuitous encounter at Hargeisa International Book Fair brought the two back together again. And Nuradin said to Abdisalam, well, it's taking you a little while to work on the translation of the earlier book. If you're stuck, how about you translate From a Crooked Rib? And Abdisalam, of course, honored by the request, embarked on the translation. And if I'm doing justice to what you said, Abdisalam, the challenge, of course, of translating, as Abdisalam has described to us, is that you cannot, in terms of your approach, embark on this as a word-for-word translation. A lot gets lost. And in addition to that, this story is almost making its journey back to the Somali people. It is set in a Somali context, however, described and told in a way that it's universal. The story is understood universally. And Abdisalam mentioned that he had to really think long and hard about how he could convey this story back to a Somali audience in a way that they would understand it. And that, of course, is something that is greater than just words, but really requires a thought process, a very careful thought process, and understanding also of the Somali psyche, as it were. So Abdisalam, thank you very much. We're happy. We're incredibly happy that this endeavor has now resulted in a translation, in a completed translation. And Abdisalam said he would think twice about another request for translation, knowing what he's experienced. But I think the legacy and the contribution that this translation also has made to ensuring that this important work reaches Somali audiences, I think is a great honor for you as well, and we thank you very much for that. Before I open it up to the floor, I'd like to quickly come back to Nuradin with one final question. Nuradin, if I may come back to you before we give the audience an opportunity to engage in a conversation with you as well. And a lot has been heard from us. And I don't want to put you on the spots, but relating it back to From a Crooked Rib and overall your work, the theme of Somaliweek Festival this year is leadership and creativity. And both on, I would think, subjects and themes that are well represented in your work. And whether it's a failure of leadership in the broader Somali context and the way that you've examined the Somali circumstance, as it were, over the last 25 odd years and even longer than that. And creativity, of course, the output of your creative endeavors. what are your reflections on these two themes?
Now that you mentioned the term leadership, I remember a sentence with which Achebe's book called The Trouble with Nigeria starts. Achebe's book starts with a sentence, the following sentence: "The trouble with Nigeria is its leadership." Achebe has been, we've been friends for many, many years. And we discovered, over many years of meeting and arguing about it, that we've held, and I'm using the present tense because the work of a writer is always in the present tense. It's never, the writer lives through the work that he or she has produced and that has become available to other people. We have disagreed very often because my argument has always been that it's the people who create the leader to lead them out of trouble and problems and other difficulties, not somebody who claims to represent them and not someone who says, "I am your chief." And if I were to study leadership in a community as a novelist, I'm not a sociologist, I'm not an anthropologist, or even a historian, I would say that I would study the people. And therefore, rather than working on the wrong assumption, erroneous assumption, that you have someone called Silanya who is in Hargeisa, someone called Hassan somebody who is in Mogadishu, Haile Mariam who is in Ethiopia, Mengistu who used to be there. Instead of saying these things, I have written novels about dictatorship, but studied the people. And you study how do people treat their children? How do they deal with the wife? How does the husband, what communication takes place in the household between the husband and the wife? What communication and rapport, relationship exists between parents and children? Let me just remind you, a few minutes ago, Abdisalam and I were sitting out in the porch, and Jama was also with us. And I can't remember how it all started. And I said that when I was young, if my father was talking to two of his cronies, and they were talking about politics or sharing wisdom or history or something that I could have benefited from, and if I went curious, intelligent young boy and sat by his side, my father would say to me, "What are you doing sitting here, boy? Go and play." Now, that is one of the reasons why we in Somalia, in the Somali-speaking peninsula, and I would not distinguish one group from another. This is one of the reasons why we have not created a leadership that has come from down up. We usually have one person who says, "I know how to do it, I know how to fix it." And these are some of the reasons. with regard to creativity. With regard to creativity, I would say that Somalis are creative even in their self-destruction. But the one thing that gives me hope, and it gives me hope continuously, I was in Minneapolis a couple of days ago. 3 days ago, I was in Minneapolis, remembering the murder of my sister who was killed in Afghanistan. And I remember reminding myself that when I went there in 1988 to teach at the University of Minnesota for the first time in 1988, there were no Somalis. There was one young Somali girl, would have been 21, 22, and she was a painter, and a very good painter. I have been trying to find out what's become of her. That was the only one who was there at that time. And then subsequently, more and more Somalis have arrived. And I have gone there occasionally to teach, sometimes for 2 years or 3 years. And I have discovered that the first few years were very difficult. Now things are beginning to happen positively, in the same way as things are also happening here positively. Somalis are now reaching an understanding of where they come from and are proud of it quite often. So I am happy with the way Somalis have become creative in the, in the effort they do. Well, you would hear many people say terrible things about Somalis. I don't. And the reason is because I have lived abroad far more than most people. I left Somalia in 1974. And therefore, I know how difficult it is to operate in a place where you're not rooted, where you're not much liked, where the culture is different, where et cetera, et cetera. So I think that the creative nature of the Somali will come out. And if you compare the other communities, if you compare the Ethiopian, the Eritrean, the Sudanese, to the Somalis, you would find the topmost intelligent who's running for place in the parliament, in the Congress, in all this would be Somali. But the one who is also at the lowest, on the lowest rung of the ladder would also be Somali. So we contain extremes. And I like it, because there are many stories and many novels that one can write about this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nuradin. And I think you will all agree with me that we are collectively incredibly proud to have a publisher that when you send a book to, will not ask whether the author Nuradin is female or male, but will know. So that is already a great achievement. And we're incredibly happy that our cherished writer is here with us. And today is here also to celebrate with us the realization of the dream and aim that you had when writing this book and wanting it to originally appear in Somali. And incredibly happy to have the man here with us, Abdisalam Hereri, who has made that possible. So please, a very warm round of applause to everyone. waqti wanaagsan baan haysanaa aad inaguna aad ku wareysatiin panelka iyo qoraageena weyn Abdisalam Hereri wuu nala joogaa Jama way nala joogaa marka iniga nigu soo dhaweynaya hadalka hadda la yiraahdo ayaa inoo
dadka Soomaaliya wax ka qoro akadeemiyiinta ah ama fictioniska qora Soomaalida waxay ku sheegaan dhowr arrimood ummad qabiil inay tahay diintuna inay tahay unifying factor oo ummadda ma taqaana mideeya ayay ma taqaana ku sheegaan waxa kale sheegaan Somali sense of identity has severely been damaged by the civil war. Okay, sense of Somaliness dhaawac badanaa soo gaaray. Qabiilkana waa divine factor wax burburiya. Marka adiga qoraaladaada waxaan yar tabanayay maadaama islaamku uu yahay unifying factor oo value xoog badan oo qiimo badan oo ummadan guidance siin kara solidarity iyo spirit inay hore u socoto inaad aad u involve garayso qoraaladaada yaan yar tabanaya runtii marka taa haddaad waxoogaa ka ifiso anuu weliba la socda islaamka inay dad xun ku dheeleen oo narrow minded ah oo si xun u fasiray oo ayaga hadda islaynaya oon skill lahayn oo loo arka diintii irrelevant inay tahay laakiin haddana waxaan aad u yar tabanaya hadalkaaga la dhagaysto inaad si fiican faktorka ummadda mideeya aad u dhexgeliso aad baad ugu mahadsan tahay jawaabtaada thank you
magacaygu waa cabdiraxmaan maxamed abtidoon buuggan halkan yaalla waa buuggii ugu horreeyay oo novel aan aqriyay 1976 so waa buuggii indhaha ii furay waxaan rabay inaan Nuradin sidaa darteed iraado waad mahadsan tahay 19 ayaa markii ugu horreysay noloshaydan aan Nuradin arkay Talyaaniga maruu yimid oo muxaadarad ka jeedinayay Faculty of Political Science in Milan and anoo cashir dhiganaya maalin ayaa afar qof oo kale Soomaalina classka ay ku jireen ayaa macalimiintu markaas waxay tiri ma ogtahay ardayga ugu horreeyay markuu soo galay Soomaaliga ah ma ogtahay caawa Nuradin Farah ayaa joogo halkan ka aqrinaya markaas uu yaa waay ilaa horraantii sagaashamaadkii markuu dagaalka burburay Nuradin san ognahay wadan gudiis aad caan ugu maahayn oo waxa saarnaa block qoraaladiisa dibadda laakiin aad u caan ugu ahaa ardaygii labaad sidoo kale ardaygii saddexaad anigan ahaa markaan soo galay ay tiri okay waa fahmi karaa adigana inaadan aqoon Nuradin Farah sinan u aqoon waa qoraal kaliya aan qabno heer caalami ah oo finally tiri marka qof yaqaanaan helay marka Nuradin waxaan rabay marka hore inaad iraahdo waa ku maasan tahay inaad indhaha igu furto sababtana waxay ahayd haddaanan sheekada berigaas aan igu dambaysin aan akhriyay aan qalad u xasuusan cibla galbeedka markay ka timid meesha ay dalka soo gashay baladweynaad aan baladweynaad ku dhashan ku soo koray soo waxyaabaha ay soo jiitay kamid ahay markiiba marka deegaanka taqaano sidii ninkii igu horreeyay hadda uu sheegayo kala xogaa wuu ku fududahay talabaad Abdisalam waxaan rabay su'aal inaan weydiiyo xagee ku dambaysay ku dambeey buugii kale ma soo wadaa mise ma ka sugaynaa mise
I'm going to be speaking in English just to let everybody know. First of all, it's an honor to hear you speak. It's my first time hearing you speak, but just to kind of give you back context, I wrote my master's dissertation about language in African literature, and maps was one of the books that I wrote about. And in the book, obviously, the context is very different from the way Somalia and the region is now, but I felt like a lot of the sentiment about Somali identity really lies in language from the people in the novel and also from the context of that time. And I thought it was very interesting that the characters in the novel discussed Somali language as like a bridging identity for all Somalis, no matter where in the world that they lived. And my question was to you, how do you think that now to bring that the context in the novel back to today and to people like myself from the diaspora, how important do you think it is for young Somalis who may not have such a grasp on the language, how can they negotiate their Somaliness and Somalinimo and the way that that lies so closely to language with their lack of language, if that makes sense?
Thank you. Thanks to the questioners. I've had bad press when it comes to talking about religion. For some reason, it's the whip with which I'm struck quite often, that I don't give it much space, that I don't, that I insist instead of everybody meeting and saying Salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, I prefer simply saying Warwan nabad and nabad ma sheegtay. And the thing that separates me from Arabs and other Muslims is, in fact, that very thing which is to do with language. I have also written about a visit I made recently to Mogadishu. Not recently, I mean, let's say, if 6 years, 7 years is recent, then it's recent. And I discovered that people in the restaurant, Nasa Hablod, that I'm eating at the same restaurant, are talking to each other in Arabic, which I didn't even know quite well, which is quite sad, you see, because if they spoke well enough Arabic, I might have enjoyed the Arabic as well. But they weren't even good in Arabic. So we spend a great deal more time talking about the Civil War, and we talk about the self-destruction, and we talk about many of these things, but we seldom talk about the language, Somali language, that's disappearing, continuously disappearing, so that 2/3 of an article in Somali, if you read the newspapers, the websites, the Somali websites, are in Arabic. 2/3, and that's quite high. So I usually say that language is the identity that we share most. But we also share a mode of dress that's unique to Somali people, a mode of dress, especially among women. Now, you ask yourself the question, what's become of the Guntino? What's become of the Dira? What's become of the Garbasar? What's become of, what has become of these? And the question I have asked, and then some people, say Nuradin is irreligious, is I say, can we not remain Muslim while we are remaining Somali, speaking our language, respecting our ancestors, the language they spoke, without going the whole hog in the direction in which we cannot come back forever, especially because you want your children also to speak English, and therefore there are many Somali children who won't learn to speak Somali. And therefore the language is going to be all the poorer. And the language becomes poorer and poorer by the day because the people who live in the Somali Peninsula nowadays are not sufficiently educated, sophisticated enough to keep the language alive and developed, which is why translations of books, not necessarily my book, but translations of books are very important. And these are some of the things that some people say, Nuradin is, he doesn't respect our faith, he doesn't, my position is I am a Somali. And I would like to know a Somali when I see a Somali. I can't tell the difference. If I can't tell the difference between a Somali and an Afghani woman, my identity is going to be questioned. So I'm saying let's respect what we inherited from our parents. These are the things that we share. We share them more than we share anything else, and let's preserve them. Now that's my hobby horse, and I will get off that hobby horse and answer the question from Abtidon. Now, the question of feeling one with the text. If this is, I hope this is what I understood. I understood Abdisalam saying that he read the book many, many years ago, and that he felt and he found. Remember earlier I said one of the reasons why I began writing was because I thought Somalis would find themselves, their names, you know, Soyan, Loyan, and that sort of names that are non-Arab. I have 3 children, and they all have Somali names. One is called Koshin, the girl is called Abian, and the other boy is called Kahir. These are names that, even though they all live in America, California, Detroit, and somewhere else, when somebody hears the names, they would say, where does the name come from? Even if nothing happens for 2 years, somebody asking them, where does the name come from? And the answer they give gives me delight. And that is what I'm talking about. That name will exist, and that country will exist. Unfortunately, I'm one of those, you know, who haven't had the same opportunities as many people. I have spent more time outside Somalia than I have spent inside Somalia, but I have this total, absolute devotion to the language. And there is every year in the month of May, on the 26th of May, there is the Somali Language Day, which should be celebrated everywhere in the Somali-speaking world. Why? Because that is the one thing that we all share. I'll tell Abdisalam a story about a woman whose name is Abla, and who told me in a cafe in Mogadishu many years ago that I had written the story about her. And I was very happy that I had found someone who actually matched the story in the way that I had written it. And I believed it until she asked to share the royalty with me. So now, Iman, I think I've answered the question, because the language and the identity and I think, you know, we have to there was a wonderful program that was done by the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And the question they asked 5 Somalis, I think it was. I happen to be one of them. That's how I know the questions. The questions were, among other things, what have we lost in view of the civil war? And I quoted and I said, the way we dress, the way we eat, the way we decorate our homes, the way we do many of these things, these are the things. And a society is identified by the way they dress, by the way they eat their food, and the type of food that they eat. And I think that is something. And I'm not anti-Muslim when I say, where is the Garbasar? And where is the Guntino? And the reason is because Somali women, I have been invited, I can tell you, both in Mogadishu and in North America and Europe, by groups of women who are having a wedding. When they're going to have a wedding, it's considered to be culture, and therefore they say, "Darki maaragtay hidaha iyo dhaqanka." But when you're walking down the street, aren't you bothered about culture too? And I think that's what is necessary. Thank you.
سؤاشي أبتدون هدان إسراك جواب هرتواها هي مايا وأنا اللي قد عايشين شري بريجي هرا الصومالي ده حاولن شيء له هاي مايا مالها النجوة دي يرسين شرف بي تيسان هربا وشاقي إن قراقي النقيمة هلا بوجي سانترشمو لكن وينو يبرو سيدا مال الله يسوق صحر اللي حبلات أنا عجها اللي يجو تشيو مال لما تشوفه مركا نوردين ما تاك برني لكن مر لبعض شرف بي نقونا يساينان هول سيدا نوكلا قلو لكن وأنا خير فقينا هدو نوردين سيدا يسوقنا وشاقي انت نبوغاكتي ساخرستي أما تاريخ دي سكور هيسانا إنو لسو عنو dhaqanka Soomaalida sida isagu u arkayay marba marxaladda la joogo ayuu adduunyada kala gudbinayay translation kan marka Soomaalida lagu soo celiyo wuxuu naga caawinayaa horta inaynu fahanno Nuradin de khuraafaad isagu u leeyahay inaanu adduunyada kala gudbin jirin wixii naga sheegay de aynu ogaano muhiimadda ugu weyn ee labaadna waa ta saddexaad adigoo raaliga waxa weeye waxaan ku raacsanayaa Abtidoon marka qoraal laga hadlayo ama novel laga hadlayo ama buugaag laga hadlayo ee qof ajnabi ah oo aqoontiisu heerka gaarsiinta aad la hadlayso waxaanu ka leenahay Nuradin Farah sida imika aynu nidhaahno Mo Farah oo kale tusaale ahaan halkii deel la oran jiray ma wadankii burcadbadeed dad ka timi marka dhamaantii waxay noo tahay de wax positive oo yididiila leh in dhaqankeena circle-iskiisa wax ka baxsan inaynu de baartay inaynu adduunyada kale iska iibino waad mahadsantahay
araba oo kaliya aniga hal su'aal ama laba su'aal oo isku dhex jira inaan weydiiyo Nuradin midda koobaad waxay tahay waxaad xustay arrinta ku saabsan qofka Soomaaliga inuu markasta extreme yahay oo hal dhinac ama kor u aadaya ama hoos u aadaya meesha dhexdhexaadka ah way ku adag tahay maxaa sababa in xagjirnimada intaas leeg qofka Soomaaliga ay ka muuqato haddii ay diin tahay haddii ay dhaqan tahay haddii ay tahay qabiil haddii ay tahay jufo haddii ay tahay wax jufada ka sii hooseeya extreme-ka intaas leeg seesa looga bixi karaa su'aasheeda labaad waxay tahay dadka qaarkii waxa laga yaabaa adiga laftirkaaga in extreme ku arkaan aniga laakiin waa maya iyo waa sax ma dhaay adiga laftirkaaga maxaan kugu tilmaanaa ma extreme ma dhexdhexaad waa maasantahay
There is a beautiful novel called Manafai, written in the Hereri dialect. It's very possible that there will be debates whether or not the Mai is a language or a dialect. I won't go into that at the moment. But I think every language, if you go to the classics of Italian literature, Dante Alighieri, when Dante wrote the trilogy, the Divine Comedy, he wrote it in vernacular, what is known as vernacular. And for that reason, the vernacular is just as useful to write in, or the language, whichever language that you can feel comfortable with. And let me tell you something. Abdisalam must have found the name Tifo very difficult. Because you will never find, unless he lost his way, you wouldn't find Tifo in Hargeisa.
Thank you very much. Abdisalam.
walaashay waxaan kaga jawaabayaa su'aasheeda haddaan Nuradin ugu daro sida ka wada war hayno luqaddu meel ma taagna waxa weeye kelmado cusub baa inta ku soo kordhaya qaar fara badan oo hore suuqa ugu jirayna meesha way ka baxayaan taaga waliba sida aad sheegayso ayaa haddaad buuggan akhrido waxaan isku dayay in luqadda maanta lagu hadle cid kasta fahmi karayso inaan ku qoro inaan ku turjumo marka tixgelinteeda ay leedahay arrintaadu.
I would like to ask you a warm round of applause for our panelists.